Hey guys, Mrs. Patterson. I am so sorry I have not been able to be there the last 2 days with you on Monday and Tuesday. Unfortunately, on Thanksgiving, my grandma passed away. She was 94. She lived a wonderful life, and so we were going to celebrate her life in Minnesota. Of course, this was very unexpected, and so I apologize for not being there on Monday and Tuesday. But I know that Mrs. Elder probably took care of you yesterday with your multiplying and dividing inequalities. I just want to review with you really quick down below in this big blank space. When you're multiplying and dividing with inequalities, remember, let's say like I have negative 3x is greater than 18. If I'm going to divide by a negative 3 to both sides, this coefficient on the x is negative, which means when I divide by that negative 3, this inequality sign has to flip over. So x is going to be less than, and 18 divided by negative 3 would be a negative 6. You have to flip this inequality sign over when that coefficient on the x is negative. It could even look like this. X over negative 2 is less than or equal to 5. Because this number, this coefficient, remember this is the same thing as a negative 1/2 x, so it's still considered a coefficient on the x. We're multiplying by a negative to both sides, so I have to flip that inequality sign over. If there's just a negative in the problem, you don't need to flip it over. And this rule only applies to multiplying and dividing. It does not apply to adding and subtracting, which makes the adding and subtracting super easy because it's just like equations. And so when I look at these, again, it's just like equations. So if I have n minus 13 is less than 7, to undo subtracting 13, it's the same thing as an equation. I'm going to add 13 to both sides. Now remember, you should be taking notes right along with me. Anything I've written down, you're writing down. So we're going to add 13 to both sides. So we're left with n is less than 13 plus 7 gives me 20. And then you would graph that. And we're not going to worry about graphing right now. X plus 18 is greater than or equal to 2. So, and if you want to, you can still draw that line down. That's fine. To undo adding 18, I'm going to subtract 18. Because I'm subtracting 18, I have x is greater than or equal to 2 minus 18 is negative 16. Remember that flipping the sign over only applies if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative to both sides, not when I'm subtracting. That sign stays the same. Only multiplying and dividing that applies. So we're going to solve, then graph the equation set. So we have d plus 3 is greater than negative 5. So because I'm adding 3, I'm going to subtract 3. So I get d is greater than negative 8. So would I use an open dot or a closed dot? I'm going to use an open dot. And if d is greater than negative 8, I'm shading to the right. Just a reminder, if it's less than greater than, it's an open dot. If it has that or equal to on it, it's a closed dot. S minus 10 is less than negative 6, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I get S is less than 4. So that's an open dot again, and I'm shading less than 4. And that's it, guys. That's adding and subtracting. So I want you to go ahead and you can move on to the back to work on the practice. On the top part, you are just going to solve the inequalities. Let's do number 6 together just because it does look a little bit differently. We have negative 4 is greater than h minus 2. So there's my variable here on the right side this time. So to undo subtracting 2, I'm going to add 2. And so we get negative 2 is greater than h. I want to come down here on these down here, we have 8 is less than p minus 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 9 is less than p. So if I were to read that the other way, p is greater than 9. So I'm using an open dot. If 9 is less than all of my p's, that means I'm going to shade right. Don't let that confuse you if that variable comes second. If you need to rewrite it the other way, you can do that. 9 is less than p is the exact same thing as p is greater than 9. So you could rewrite it if you needed to. So there's your practice. Go ahead and get started on that. If you finish your practice, I want you to go ahead and log into ALEX and get started working on ALEX, and I will count this towards your next week's ALEX topics. So you can go ahead and get started on those ALEX topics if you would like to. All right, guys, I will be back on Wednesday, so you guys have a great day. Be good for the sub. Do everything you're supposed to do, and I will be back Wednesday. Bye, guys.